Hello, my name is Melissa, and the focus for today will be how to teach the simple past tense to English language learners. And I have been teaching both English and Spanish for over 20 years now, but for the past few years, I've been focusing my efforts on teaching ESL online. I have worked for several companies from South America to China, Russia as well. I have taught students online from all over the world, from Seattle to Siberia to South America. Okay, and over the past few years, I've gotten a lot of questions from people. How do you teach online? How do you communicate effectively with your students? What textbooks do you use or materials? Okay, so tonight, I will show you a sample lesson, that I have taught many times. It has brought me and my students great success. Okay, so tonight we will focus on the simple past tense as well as the past progressive. Okay, and the first part of the lesson plan is very important. Activate the schema. This is the background knowledge of the learner. For those educators who are familiar with Madeline Hunter, she describes this as the anticipatory set. Get the students ready to learn. Let them anticipate. Okay? And a lot of my lessons, I generally start with a picture or a graphic or even a short video. Okay? So when I teach this lesson, it's always the same. Okay? I start with a few pictures. Okay? And the students are grouped into groups of 2 or groups of 3. Okay, and when you're teaching a diverse array of students, international students, in one classroom, the rule of thumb that I always live by: pair up the students opposite language, opposite country. So, for example, a student from Mexico City will work best with a student from, say, Moscow or Beijing. Okay, and allow students 5 to 6 minutes, to discuss these 4 questions. Okay, and don't be afraid to use a timer. This is a handy tool that I use. I've used this at the high school level, at the college level as well. It helps students stay on track. So after a few minutes, the students have discussed these questions. Who is this man? Where was he born? What was his job or profession? Do you think he had an easy life or a difficult life? I've generally found that young adults and those at the college level, and even some older adults, the majority of them will know who this historical figure is. Okay? They might guess his name correctly or his profession. I've had students in the past say, oh, he was a famous actor or an architect, a musician. Okay? But the majority of the students do know that this is Vincent van Gogh, and he was a famous European painter. Okay? Okay, now we move on to what I call the meat of the lesson. Okay, the meat is the most important part. And this will review WH question words along with the simple past, regular and irregular forms. Okay. Students will also practice question formation in the simple past and the past progressive. So for this activity, instruct students to study the pictures. We have here self-portrait without a beard, and it was sold in 1998 for $71.5 million. Below that, we have irises, one of Van Gogh's more famous paintings, sold in 1987 for $53.9 million. Okay, so at this point, instruct the students to take out a piece of paper or notebook, pen, pencil, Okay, and number 1 to 15. Okay, so let's begin. We have a text here, but we notice that there's also some missing information here. Okay, instruct the students to focus on, okay, question formation on the right-hand side. Okay, we have here a list of 15 questions. Okay, so we need to finish these questions. Okay, so let's begin. Vincent van Gogh was born in 1853. When he was a young man, he worked in London and Paris, but he was fired. Okay, so as you can imagine, okay, we can now write the questions. Okay, where was he born? Vincent van Gogh was born in 1853. We know when he was born, but we don't know where he was born. Okay, so I instruct students to write that down on your paper. Question number 1, where was he born? Okay, number 2, okay, when he was a young man, he worked in London. Okay, so what was his job? Okay, that is question number 2. Okay, and number 3, as we see here, the third line. Okay, but he was fired. So obviously the question is, why was he fired? And we can continue on with the next few questions. Okay, line 4 reads, he tried to commit suicide. So of course the question is why? Why did he try to commit suicide? Continuing on, in Paris, Vincent met many famous artists while he was, we have some missing information here. Okay, and ask students, does this signal the simple past or the past progressive? Okay, and as we know the past progressive, we need a form of was plus ing. Okay. And we'll continue on. Okay. Okay, so number 6, what was he doing when he met them? Okay, so the past progressive. Okay, for 7, 8, 9, and 10. In 1888, he moved to Arles in the south of France. Another famous painter came to live with him. So obviously, the question is, who came to live with him? Very good. As simple past tense. Okay. He was an old friend. Okay, so number 8 is a challenge. Where did they first meet? Where did they first meet? One evening, Van Gogh left the house carrying we have some missing information here, and he cut off part of his ear. Okay. So what was he carrying? Very good. What was he carrying? Okay, past progressive. No specific time period. And of course, he cut off part of his ear. Why? Why did he cut off part of his ear? After this, he moved into an asylum. Many of his most famous paintings were completed here. So the question is, which famous paintings or which paintings were completed there? Okay, and the last few questions. In 1890, while he was, he shot himself in the chest. 2 days later, he died. He was buried. Okay, so doing, okay, ask students, do you think this is the past progressive or the simple past? Okay, and remind students, anything progressive is ing. Okay, present progressive, past progressive. It's always ing. What was he doing? When he shot himself. Very good. Okay, so what was he doing when he shot himself? Okay, 2 days later he died. He was buried. Why? Okay, so why did he shoot himself? Okay, we're going to find out later. Okay, now we're just focusing on the questions. Okay, and he was buried. Ah, an important question. Where? Where was he buried? When he died, he had no money. So why didn't he have any money? Very good. Why didn't he have any money when he died? Okay. So as students read the text and write the questions, walk around the room and monitor. This is very important. Okay. Okay. Monitor and check the students' grammar and spelling. Okay. Students may also have questions about vocabulary, such as asylum or to commit suicide, okay, or the expression to be fired. Okay. So monitor, check the grammar, check the spelling, answer any questions about vocabulary. Okay. And then elicit student responses. Call on students, okay, and write the questions on the board, okay, or on the screen if you have a smart classroom. Okay. Okay, and be sure to instruct the students. Don't worry about the answers. Okay, we're just focusing on question formation, the differences between simple past and the past progressive. So number one, where was he born? Okay, what was his job? Why was he fired? And so on. So at this stage, okay, check the students' questions. Okay, and also instruct the students to write these down. They're very important, okay, because we will answer these questions in a few minutes. Okay, so now, okay, instruct students, okay, to read the second text. Okay, this is the second text. Okay. Okay, so call on volunteers to read a paragraph at a time. Okay, I also instruct students to circle any unknown words. So let's begin. Okay, Vincent van Gogh, the genius unrecognized in his own lifetime. Vincent van Gogh was born in Brabant in the Netherlands in 1853. As a young man, he worked as an art dealer in London and Paris. He was fired from this job because he had argued with customers about art. In 1881, he tried to commit suicide. He was depressed because he had fallen in love with his cousin, but she had rejected him. In 1886, he went to Paris to study art, and it was while he was studying that he met Degas, Pissarro, Seurat, Toulouse-Lautrec, Monet, and Renoir. After 2 years in Paris, Van Gogh went to live in Arles in the south of France. His friend and fellow painter Gauguin, who he had met in Paris, came to join him. The two men settled down in Arles, but there was a lot of tension between them. They used to quarrel fiercely, mainly about the nature of art. One evening in December 1888, Van Gogh left the house carrying a razor blade. He'd been arguing with Gauguin again and was very distressed. He cut off part of his ear. After this, he moved voluntarily into an asylum for the insane at Saint-Rémy-de-Provence. He used to wake up at 6 in the morning and go out to paint. It was here, in the last 2 years of his life, that many of his most famous paintings were completed. These included Starry Night, Irises, and Self-Portrait Without a Beard. In 1890, he left the warm south and moved to Auvers-sur-Oise. Here he continued working despite his growing depression. It was while he was painting outside that Vincent shot himself in the chest. 2 days later, he died. He was buried in the cemetery in Auvers. When Van Gogh died, he had no money because he'd only sold one of his paintings, The Red Vineyard, in his entire life. His sister-in-law took his collection to Holland, where his work was published. He was instantly recognized as a genius. Okay, so by this time, most of the students have answered the first 4 questions. The first few questions. Okay, so where was he born? Why was he fired? Okay, and of course, allow students 10 to 15 minutes. Use your timer. Okay, instruct the students. You have 10 to 15 minutes to answer your 15 questions. Okay, and when you're done, okay, check your answers with your partner. Okay. Remember, when teaching English to internationals, we learn best in social situations, in groups of 2 or 3. So it's very important to pair up the students, opposite country, opposite language. So as we know, he was born in Brabant in the Netherlands. Okay. He worked as an art dealer. So after about 10 to 15 minutes, okay, call on volunteers, call on students, okay, and instruct them to read the question and the answer. Okay, this will also allow you to check their grammar in the question as well. Okay, where was he born? He was born in Brabant, the Netherlands. Okay, what was his job? He worked as an art dealer. Okay, this activity is also a great review of WH question words. Who, what, when, where, why, how many, how much. Okay, and continuing on. Okay, here are the last 3 questions. Okay, and we will continue. Okay, a lot of people over the past few years have asked me, okay, well, what books or what materials do you use when you teach English as a second language? Hey, and one of my favorite series to use is, of course, Headway. I discovered this when I was teaching English in Barcelona, Spain, and I came across this series. Oxford University Press, okay, is the publisher. Okay, and I strongly recommend this book. It's an excellent text. Okay, and how to choose materials. Okay, be sure that the materials grab the learner's attention. Okay, the rule of thumb that I always follow, be sure that they're engaging, inspiring, interesting. Okay, some students in the past have told me, well, I don't like art. I don't go to art museums. I don't follow art. Okay, but everybody has an opinion about art. Okay, whether they like it, Okay, whether it's a traditional painting or a sculpture or a simple pen and paper drawing, everyone has an opinion. Okay, and also keep in mind it's important to teach grammar and context. Provide the learners with a context that they can relate to. Okay, and when you teach the past tense, teach history. Okay, whether it's art history or ancient Rome or the famous pyramids of Giza. Okay. For example, okay, if you teach primarily Asian learners, ask them, when was the Great Wall of China built? Who built it? Why was it built? Again, we have context. Okay, we're teaching history. Okay, this is a great review of the simple past tense and WH question words. Okay, what is Machu Picchu? If you're teaching Spanish speakers from Central or South America, where is Machu Picchu? Why is it famous? Hey, how many tourists visit Machu Picchu every year? And for those educators out there, you may be familiar with Madeline Hunter. Okay, she's a renowned educator and author. She's published many books, and she developed a model for teaching that is widely used in American schools even to this day. She was born in Canada in 1916, okay, but she and her family eventually moved to California to avoid the rough northern winters. Okay, and if you get a chance, check out some of her books. Okay, and she created an excellent template, okay, for which to write a lesson plan, a very effective lesson plan. Okay, and as I mentioned earlier, she created the concept of anticipatory set. Get the students interested in the lesson, draw them in to the lesson. Okay, and I thank you very much for your time. Okay, and here are my works cited. Okay, thank you very much.